That work? Yep, you in.
It's Taylor, turn your camera off.
Yep.
Good evening. I'm Deaconess Charmaine Bogan, and welcome to day 2 of our Mental Health Symposium. Yesterday alone was worth the price of admission, and it cost you nothing. Today is another day that will help you receive a wealth of important information. Here is Sister Ramisa Cage to introduce our first guest.
I apologize for any inconvenience. Good evening. Welcome, as Sister Charmaine said, welcome to our mental health fair. I have the pleasure of this evening introducing our first guest speaker, and her name is Hannah Duran. Hannah works at the Jackson Public Schools as a social worker. She received her master's degree in social work from the Spring Arbor University in Spring Arbor, Michigan. Her work experience includes the Juvenile Detention Center, helping disabled youth, and mental health prevention. Please listen closely as Hannah presents us with some insightful information this evening. Thank you.
Say thank you for coming and attending. Thank you for having me. Um, as she said, I am a school social worker. I work for Jackson Public Schools. I currently serve 2 schools in my district, and I work at the elementary level, serving kindergarten through 5th grade. So I want to talk to you tonight about how we can use social media to help our young people and also spread mental health awareness. Um, so before I kind of get into a couple points that I want to share with you, I want to share a story about how all of this really started. So last school year, in the beginning of the school year, around the fall time, I was working with some 4th and 5th grade girls. And if anybody knows anything about 4th and 5th grade girls, there's a lot of drama. And when working with girls, period, there's just a lot of drama. But I had a situation come up where a young girl was doing some bullying to some other girls on social media. And specifically it was on the TikTok app. I don't know if you have heard of TikTok, but it is a new and up and coming app. A lot of people are probably aware of it by now. But a lot of young people get on this app, and you can do like funny videos or dances, or just get on there and just talk. So it's a lot to the app. But this young girl did some bullying, and so I had to help that situation and talk to these girls about how they can solve this problem and how we cannot have this again. So as I did that, I was trying to reflect and think, how can I help my students begin to just have better relationships with one another, but also with us in the school, like us staff. And as I did that, I started to I kind of like went step by step, and I decided to start eating lunch with my 4th and 5th grade girls. And as I did that, they kept asking me all the time, can we show you our TikTok dances? And I'm like, what is this TikTok thing? And so they kept showing me all their dances and all the funness on this TikTok app. And at that time I was like, okay, I'm just trying to get to know my students so I can better relate to them. Anyways, so as I go on this journey, at the same time, my 15-year-old cousin invites me over, and she wants to show me her TikTok app and all these dances. So I'm like thinking it's really funny, like, why is this all happening my students are talking about TikTok, my family's talking about this, and it's just really weird how all this panned out. But as all this is going on, then the pandemic hits. And so in the pandemic, our district asked us to try to keep in touch with students and staff. And as I was trying to figure out a way to keep in contact with my students, a lot of them don't have phones, but they have devices and they're on the TikTok app. So I kind of had this light bulb moment, and I asked my district if I could make a school social worker TikTok page. And I know this sounds like so silly, and it is, like, the app is very silly and it can be fun. But when I learned more about this app, people were on this app, like, educating people about relationships, about depression and anxiety, and you can even learn things about how to repair your car and build your credit and things like that. And so when I had this light bulb moment, I thought, wow, like, why can't I use social media to help my students learn coping skills, to help my students learn mindfulness practices and about how our brain is connected to our body, and why we do the things that we do. So I just kind of started dabbling in it, and I'm gonna show you a couple of my TikTok videos here in a minute, but I want to stress the importance of, I really learned the importance of how social media can really impact our young people. And so a couple points that I just want you to take away from tonight is, number one, we got to meet the young people where they're at. And many older people and even people, in my generation are kind of they're a little hesitant to go to social media, and there's a lot of negative things on social media, and I totally understand that. But this is where our young people are at. They're on TikTok and Instagram and Facebook and things like that. So I decided to use this for good, and I want to meet my students where they're at. If they are on this app, I want to know, what are they taking in their minds? Like, what are they learning? And what can I do to use this to help them learn something that they can use in life? So that's the first point, is just meeting them where they're at. The second point I want to make is we can use social media to educate, encourage, motivate, and inspire our young people. So as a school social worker, we have to do social emotional learning. So we had to start doing videos of our social emotional learning anyways. So I thought this was definitely a good place to start at. But as I did these videos and my students were seeing them, they were like inspired. They started talking about mindfulness. They started talking about different coping skills. And I noticed that I can be an influencer with the students that I serve. So I want to really encourage you that wherever you're at, whether it doesn't matter what job you're at, or maybe you're serving in your church, or whatever, wherever you're serving at, or whatever population that you have, you can use social media to your advantage, and you can encourage and inspire people, and also educate about mental health, which is a part of the big prevention process. So the third point I want to say is that we can use social media to engage and build relationships. So I did a lot of silly dances and I learned how to do the whoa, and I learned how to do the renegade dance, if you know what that is. It was really hard, by the way. But I learned these silly dances, and I just did like fun, silly stuff. And it was a way to engage my students and young people. And it was just a way that we can relate and just help build relationships. And when you build a relationship, then you can start that, you gain trust with them, and they will begin to listen to what you're saying. So this was like super important that I just did like silly fun on this app. And then the fourth thing that I want to share with you is that you never know who is watching you. And it's so funny that I am on here talking to you all because literally just a couple days ago, I received a Facebook message from one of my Facebook friends, somebody that I haven't talked to in a long time. And she told me that she is tutoring one of my students at my school. And she said that the student always asks to see my videos and she thinks that it's really helping him. And she told me that my positivity is not going unnoticed. And so sometimes you think like when you post all the time that, you know, nobody's seeing this, even if you don't get any likes or anything like that. But truth be told, that people are watching you, they're taking this in. And as I sit here and reflect about it, I have had certain students say that they've seen my TikToks. I've also had young people on the app who wasn't even a student of mine. They commented on one of my videos and, you know, said something positive, or they said that they needed to hear that day. So you just never know what young person you are touching and who you are reaching when just simply by adding a video or a post or a meme or whatever social media that you use for yourself or your agency. So I just wanted to share my story with that and encourage you to use social media to your advantage to help promote mental health awareness, and also just to engage and build relationships and you know, teach our young people how to help ourselves and what we can do. So I want to share a couple videos of mine so you can see some examples of what I have done. The first video seconds, and so maybe I'll show it twice, but it's just me breathing with a breathing balm. And what's really funny about this is that this got like 100 likes. Like the kids loved this video. And I was just simply showing them how to breathe properly. So let me share my screen so you can see that. Okay. So that was literally a simple little video that I did just to show how to breathe correctly, and the kids loved that one. The next video, I use my mind jar to show how your brain gets stressed and what that looks like and what it feels like. Stressed out, like we Hey guys, today I have my mind jar, and the mind jar represents our minds or our brains, and see how it's nice and calm? Sometimes when we get really stressed out, like we have a fight with our brother or sister, or we have too much homework to do and we don't understand it, this is what happens to our brains. When our brains look like this and we're super stressed out, we need to find something to do to help calm our brains down, and that's called a coping skill. That could be a breathing exercise, it could be taking a walk, or it could be talking to someone that you trust. Do you see how all the glitter is going back to the bottom of the jar? That is how our brains work when we're stressed out. When we find a coping skill that helps us deal with our stress, eventually we begin to calm down. And I'm going to show just a couple more, just two more. The next video, I had a lot of fun making because I involved some other school staff, and this was a video of me interviewing some other teachers what is their favorite coping skill. So it made it fun, but it was also educational at the same time. Hey guys, we're here with Mrs. Kane today and we're talking about coping skills. Mrs. Kane, what's your favorite coping skill?
When I'm having a bad day, I like to take a quick walk to the park, listen to some fun music, maybe even do a little dance, or have a slice of my favorite pizza.
Miss Williams here today.
Hey guys!
Miss Williams, what's your favorite coping skill?
I like to read my favorite book, Dragons Love Tacos, and so do I.
So we had a lot of fun shooting that video, and I did a couple more with teachers as well. We just had so much fun making that video, and it was, so you can make your videos fun. I use some effects on there and I put music to it, which makes it more fun. And in that last video that you saw, it was just the music to the Savage song, which some of you probably have heard before, and the kids love it. So I tried to, obviously make it very appropriate, but also make it relevant to what kids like, and make it fun for them, and they enjoy it. So there's a couple of my videos. You can look at my page if you want to see some more ideas of what I've been doing. But it's really a good outlet for you as well. Like, you could be creative with it and make it fun. And yeah, it was just like really enjoyable. So anyways, you can use social media to really encourage and motivate and educate. And I have found it to be a very positive experience. I've gotten a lot of really good positive feedback, even from my principals, and which means a lot to me. But also it means even more to have the feedback from my students, and to build those relationships is so nice. And I love to do what I do. So anyways, I hope that you enjoyed this presentation. And if you have any questions, feel free to hit one of us up so you can ask me a question and I can get you an answer. Thank you very much and have a good night.
Hannah, I am also, like your students, loving TikTok as well. So I'm glad to hear that you are using that in a positive way for your students. Our next presenter is Allisen Rogers. She works at Michigan State University Extension. She is a community nutrition instructor, and she provides programming on nutrition, food budgeting, and physical activity.
All right. Hi, everybody. I'm so excited to be here. Again, I'm Allie Rogers, a community nutrition instructor at MSU Extension. Really long title that just means that I like food and I like to talk about food. And of course, as I was getting ready for this presentation, my internet had gone out and my PowerPoint is down. So we're going to try to get the PowerPoint back up, but if not, that's okay. We're still going to talk a lot. So feel free in the chat at any time, throw in questions, comments, concerns, compliments. I will take those as well. But what I want to talk about today is something very important that we talk about, but don't really get to too much of the issue, are some nutrients that we should be decreasing, right? So maybe throw in the chat, what are some things that you've heard before that you should not eat or eat less of or eat more of? What are some of those things? Maybe fad things. Maybe we've seen them on social media, right? So definitely we're seeing it on Facebook and TikTok and Instagram and all that. So feel free to throw that in the chat. We're going to look at decreasing saturated fats, sodium, and added sugar or salt. I might say sodium or salt interchangeably. They're going to mean the same thing. So these three nutrients, they're not necessarily essential nutrients. And when I say essential nutrients, I mean, it's something that our body absolutely has to have to be happy and healthy, right? And so when we're happy and healthy, it's gonna not only improve just our physical body, but also our mental state. We're also gonna talk a little bit today about physical activity, because not only am I eating food properly, getting the right fuel for my body, but I also have to use that up correctly. And studies and science have shown us that being physically active decreases our risk of anxiety, stress, and depression. So we'll get to that. We're going to do some physical activity together, and I'm hoping that my PowerPoint is going to stay up, but who knows? So what I am going to pull up here in a second is something called MyPlate. I hope that we're a little bit familiar with MyPlate. Maybe we're a little bit familiar with My Pyramid. That was the old USDA food graphic. We now use MyPlate just to break down what foods should we be eating and how much of them. Excuse me. All right, I think we have the PowerPoint now that my internet's not working or working now. I appreciate your patience. I think we can all probably have a little bit of flexibility with the technology. We've probably all faced it. So here's that lovely picture that I was describing. I could have tried to draw it on a whiteboard for you, but I will tell you right now, it would not look that great. So I might refer to our MyPlate as we're going through this and what nutrients we want. When looking at this, we're gonna see that half of what we eat every single day should be fruits and vegetables. Only a quarter needs to be protein and only a quarter needs to be grain. And then we have a serving of dairy. If we think about the kind of typical American plate when you go to a restaurant or order out food, does it usually look like this too much? We're usually seeing like huge portions of protein, maybe a lot of grains, right? Who's ever gone to a restaurant and gotten unlimited breadsticks, those bottomless tortilla chips also. So thinking we don't need those much grains and that much protein. Fruits and veggies give us all different types of nutrients, vitamins, minerals, fiber. We're gonna get some protein, as well as some complex carbohydrates, which are really good, quick energies for us, different from added sugar, which we'll talk about again, and water, another essential nutrient. So I just want to show us this so we're a little bit familiar as we talk about it. Of course, MSU Extension is non-discriminatory against everybody. We welcome everyone here with us. I will send later a survey for us, but I'm not worried about that right now. What I'm worried about is that we know what we're talking about. So added sugar, fat, and sodium. Thinking about these nutrients. These three nutrients have been shown to increase our risk for chronic illness and chronic disease like type 2 diabetes, stroke, heart attack, other cardiovascular disease, weight gain, obesity, and other chronic illnesses. While decreasing these and being mindful of how much we're having has been shown to decrease that risk. But how do we do that? What do those sizes even look like? When we're thinking about added sugar, it's gonna be different than natural sugar. Natural sugar naturally occurs in our food. Think of strawberries or blueberries. When you bite into them, they're naturally sweet. We didn't add anything to it, but they have a sweetness to them. But added sugar is what it also sounds like too. It's added. So there's no soda tree or candy vine that I can just go out and like pick up a cola and it's straight from the ground. We make it, we add sugar to it. Same way that I might add sugar into my coffee or when I'm making a baked good, that's an added sugar. There's no nutritional value to added sugar. It is not an essential nutrient. The average American consumes 30 to 40 pounds of added sugar every single year. So I just want to like think about that for a second. We know that it's not an essential nutrient. I don't need it, but 30 to 40 pounds, that's a lot. And does anybody know what happens to extra energy, calories that we consume and don't use up? Let's see if we put anything in the chat. So extra energy that we don't use gets stored as fat. And while some fat is necessary for us, it keeps us warm. It's the middle of winter right now. If I went outside and didn't have any fat, I'd be very cold. So it keeps us warm, it keeps us insulated. It protects our organs so that when I bump into something, I'm not gonna puncture my liver or my lungs, but I have to be mindful of how much I have. Everything in moderation, right? So added sugar is not essential. That other nutrient we're talking about is saturated fats or trans fats too. And maybe we're familiar with these because we're gonna see those on the back of our nutrition facts labels. Saturated fats are not a heart healthy fat. I like to kind of do this visual. So if my heart's broken, it's not heart healthy. Heart's together, it's heart healthy. The heart healthy fats are called unsaturated. Those are fats that are liquid at room temperature. Think of olive oil, canola oil, vegetable oil, grapeseed oil. That's all I can think of at the top of my head, right? Heart healthy. Those help provide good things for our body. We might think of some seafood like fish has those omega-3s and omega-6s, heart healthy. The fats that are solid at room temperature, trans fats and saturated fats, are not heart healthy. These are things like butter, margarine, Crisco, the really fatty cuts of meat. So we can have those, we just have to be really mindful. And then that last nutrient we're discussing decreasing is salt or sodium. So this one is really tricky to make sure that we decrease it because there's salt in a lot of things. Not only do we add it for flavor and taste, but salt's a preservative. So we're putting it in foods to have a longer shelf life, which can be great so I can store food, it doesn't go bad. Nobody wants to waste money, right? If I can save some money, that's my goal. So if I can maybe keep something in my cupboard or my pantry, but too much salt has a really negative effect on our body. We only need 1,500 milligrams of salt. And I know what you're thinking, that's too many numbers. What does that look like? And I will show you, but we only need 1,500 milligrams. We're not recommended to exceed 2,300 milligrams of sodium in a day. The average person here in the US is consuming 3,500 to 4,500 milligrams in a day. That's almost 3 times what we need. And so if you can see on the screen, the tip of my pinky is what 1,500 milligrams looks like, that much. And I know that when I think about that visual, I can definitely think of some maybe fast food or restaurants that I've been to, and I've looked at just the salt covering my French fries, and it's probably been this much, right? It's a lot. So we're going to discuss some different ways of decreasing that, because I can tell you all day long, don't have so much salt and added sugar and saturated fats. But if I don't give you realistic examples, then what's the point? I want us to be mindful, and I know this is tiny, not to fear the fat. Remember, we have heart healthy and not heart healthy. Same thing with salt. It is an essential nutrient. We need so much of it, that 1,500 milligrams. We just don't need all of it. The only one that we don't need and necessary for our body is added sugar, but we're gonna find it a lot of places and we're gonna enjoy it sometimes, right? Added sugar tastes great for certain things. We can have ice cream and candy and cake, but should I be having this all the time? How much should I be having? Remember, heart healthy fats, they help our arteries, they help provide that insulation for our body, protecting our organs. So I want us to look at a nutrition facts label. I hope we're a little bit familiar with this. It's on the back of most of our foods, the packages, cans, boxes, bags, whatever it is. And I'm gonna start from the top and work our way down. It's really important that we understand how we're reading a nutrition facts label so that we understand what's in our food and how much, especially if we're concerned about getting more or getting less. So from the top, we have serving size and servings per container. Our serving size is right here, and that is what the food scientists sat down and said, this is how much we should have at this time. And everything below there, right, calories, other nutrients, only account for that serving size. Servings per container is different. That's how many serving sizes I can fit in my whole container. So for this example, my serving size is 2/3 of a cup, but I can get 8 of them in my entire container. So if I ate the whole container, maybe this is a bag of chips, and I sat down and ate that whole family size bag of chips, and it is just me and not my whole family, I would have to multiply everything down here by 8 to get the correct nutrients that I just consumed. And I'm just gonna hit some of these target nutrients that we're gonna be looking out for. Calories sometimes get a bad rep. Sometimes we hear some really negative things like, I gotta lower my calories. Calories can be great for us. All they are is just a unit of measurement. It is how much energy we get from food. Just like we measure distance in miles and inches and meters, we're gonna measure our energy in calories. The average person needs about 2,000 calories per day, but that will differ based off of sex and physical activity and age. Our total fat, so looking down here, that's where our saturated and trans fats come in. So total fat is 8 grams. Out of those 8 grams, we have 1 gram of saturated fat and no grams of trans fats. That means that the other 7 grams are going to be unsaturated, which are those heart healthy fats. Next that I want to touch on is sodium or salt. This is in milligrams, 160 milligrams. Remember, we only need 1,500, so this is roughly 10%. And then next is total carbohydrates. Carbohydrates is just a fancy word for a type of sugar. Remember when I said that when we eat fruits and veggies, there's a little bit of sweetness sometimes. That's a natural sugar. That's what carbohydrates are in those fruits and veggies. That's what gives us that quick energy to be able to get up out of bed and do things. We're going to see dietary fiber, which helps our digestive system. But I want us to really focus on this total sugars. This is where it differentiates between being a natural sugar and being an added sugar. So I have 12 grams of sugar in this serving. Out of those 12 grams, 10 of those are just added sugar, which means that there's actually only 2 grams of natural sugar in there. Most of it is added sugar. And then underneath, we're gonna find protein and some key vitamins and minerals as well. So vitamin D, calcium, iron, and potassium. This is very tiny on my screen. I'm gonna imagine it's tiny on other people's screen, but at the very bottom is a little footnote that says, based off of a 2,000 calorie per day diet is our percent daily value. That's what's here on our right-hand side, all these percents. I like to think of it as a pie chart. Ideally, I try to get 100% of my essential nutrients. So I want to get 100% vitamin D today. If I eat this food, I get 10%. That means that I need to find the other 90% in other foods as well. And I do want to just check, do we have any questions in the chat before I keep moving forward? I'm not seeing anything. Again, keep tossing stuff in if you need me to go over something else or have a question. Now I want us to look at these red light, yellow light, green light foods. I'm really testing you to see if you actually paid attention to any of the things that I just said. And I know what you're thinking, this is a black and white photo. It's what we had. So when we're thinking about food, we might say red light, yellow light, green light, or go, slow, whoa foods. A go or green light food is the food that we want all the time. A food that is high in nutrients, can be lower in calories, can be kind of high in calories, but we've got all those good things like vitamins, minerals, protein, natural sugars, and the unsaturated heart healthy fats. A slow or a yellow food is something we can have sometimes. So maybe this is a once a day food, not every meal. Maybe this is just a couple times a week kind of food. And then when we get to our red light and our slow foods, it's what it kind of sounds like. This is, I need to not have this all the time. This is a once in a while, couple times a month, once a week, and being very mindful of what my portion size is. And portion size and serving sizes are different. So serving size is what that recommendation was on my food label. But portion size is kind of up to me. My portion might be a helping, a handful, 2 handfuls of something. So I do really need to be mindful. An example would be a ice cream sundae, which might sound really great, but that's probably not going to be a go food. That's a whoa or red light food. Because if I'm eating an ice cream sundae every single day or multiple times a day, one, I think I'm going to get very sick very quickly and not feel super great, but I'm also going to be over consuming too much added sugar. So going back to this, we're going to take a look at some more nutrition facts labels. And in the chat, I want to welcome you to throw your guess in as to what you think these answers are. So let's look at this food. Our serving size is 1/2 cup. A really great way to see like what does this cup mean, because I don't know about anybody else, but I don't carry measuring cups and measuring spoons around with me wherever I go. If you do, wonderful. I don't, but we can actually tell by the size of our hands. So the size of my fist roughly is the size of 1 cup. Half of my fist is the size of 1/2 cup. We use our thumbs to measure tablespoons. 2 thumbs, 2 tablespoons. And then remember I said our 1500 milligrams is our pinky. And whenever we're looking at something like protein, a lot of serving sizes for protein are 3 to 4 ounces. That's roughly the size of our palm. So this helps me out a lot because, again, I don't have my measuring cups with me all the time. They're not attached to my belt like some type of food superhero. I can just use my hands to decide how much of this food do I actually need. So I'm going to go back to our nutrition facts label and let's take a look. Our serving size is 1/2 cup, right at the front of my fist. I want us to look at saturated and trans fats. We don't have any saturated or trans fats in here. When I look at my carbohydrates, I have 22 carbohydrates. I don't have any sugars, and I don't have any dietary fiber in here. So this is an old nutrition facts label, what it's looking at and not showing us is the added sugar, which means that all of these are going to be added sugars. So this is probably going to be a slow yellow light or whoa red light food. Even though it's not very high in calories, we didn't have any of those not heart healthy fats. I do need to be looking out for how much added sugar. Our foods are not always going to be black and white and easy to determine. Yep, this is going to be super good for me. We have to look at all these different sides. Next one I want us to look at, this one becomes a little bit more complicated. This serving size is for a snack pie. We get 1 serving per container, so a little pie. 480 calories. It's a little bit high for one of these. When I'm looking at my total fat, I have 9 grams of saturated fats, 2 grams of trans fats. So 11 of those grams, half of all the fat in there, are not heart healthy. Sodium, 390 milligrams, 16% of what I need in a day. And then my last one that I'm looking at is the sugars, 36 grams of sugar. And so I know that we have looked at sodium and I've told us how much we're supposed to have sodium, but I haven't told us how much of added sugar yet, because I want us to look at a few different nutrition facts label before I went there. When it comes to added sugar, it is not recommended for females to go over 24 grams of added sugar in a day. And for males, 38 grams of added sugar. So let's look at that nutrition facts label again. 36 grams, that's a lot. We are at capacity for most people to have added sugar. And some of those negative health consequences of added sugar are type 2 diabetes, cavities, teeth rotting, weight gain, obesity, other chronic illnesses to be mindful about. All right, and the last one I want us to take a quick look at here. So we have a serving size of 1/2 cup, again, front of my fist, 25 calories. That seems pretty low for this. I don't have any saturated or any trans fats. So we're looking good in that department. When I look at my sodium, 20 milligrams, 1% basically of what I need, not too much, not too worried about that. And then I can look here at my total carbohydrates, 4 grams in total, and only 1 gram of that added sugar. So those foods, this food that we just looked at, would be a go or a green light food because it's low in those nutrients and we were higher in some of the other nutrients. So I want to take a quick break and just see, are there any questions or thoughts before I keep moving forward? I'm going to check the chat. All right, wonderful. And good timing because we're like halfway through. We're going to do a stretch break. So I'm going to invite everybody to stand up and make some space for themselves because we are going to kind of test our knowledge again of what we're looking at and do some physical activity. So everyone stand up, give yourself some space. This is totally voluntary. You don't have to do it, but I would really encourage you to do some physical activity with us. So when we're thinking about go foods, slow foods, and whoa foods, right? Green light, yellow light, red light foods. For our go foods, I want us to march in place. Go food examples are fruits and veggies, whole fruits and veggies, whole foods. And when I say whole foods, I'm not talking about the store. I'm talking about a food in its most natural state. So an apple by itself versus applesauce. This apple by itself has all those great nutrients like fiber and vitamin A and vitamin C. But in my applesauce, I changed it, right? I probably added some sugar. I've taken the fiber by removing the skin. So I want to think, how are they different, right? So I can't really convince myself that an apple pie is going to count as my serving of fruit because I added a lot of sugar and salt and plenty of saturated and trans fats in there. Other great go foods are vegetables, whole vegetables, or vegetables that don't have salt and added sugar on them, whole grain foods that are high in fiber, lean proteins, so beans, nuts, seeds, legumes, and lean protein meats, so chicken, fish, other poultries, and seafoods. All right, so for our slow foods or our yellow light foods, we're gonna do some side steps, kind of stretching out our hips. These foods we can have a little more or a little less frequently than our go foods. So thinking of things that I can have once a day or a couple times a week. This might be a yogurt parfait that I put a little bit of honey in, right? Or a higher fat dairy food like milk, some cheese sticks. I might have some carrots with some ranch dipping sauce. So it's things that I can still have and somewhat frequently, but I do want to start being a little bit more mindful of it. And our last food group are slow or whoa foods or stop red light foods. We're going to do some squats with those. So squatting down, I'm going to invite you to keep doing this with me. These whoa foods and red light foods, we want to be super mindful of. These are things that are like fried foods, baked goods, desserts, ice cream, candies, sodas, things that are high in all three of those nutrients we are trying to decrease. Added sugar, saturated fats, and sodium. All right, I'm gonna invite everybody to take a deep breath in and let it out. Let's do it one more time. Deep breath in and let it out. So I've talked a lot about decreasing those nutrients. We just did physical activity. That's so important. Remember I said it helps decrease anxiety, stress, and depression. Kids under the age of 18 years old need 60 minutes of physical activity every single day, at least 60 minutes. They have growing bodies. They have a lot of energy needs. They're consuming a lot of energy. They gotta use that energy up. Everyone over the age of 18, everyone, no matter If you're 19 years old, all the way to 65, and everybody in between and above needs 150 minutes of physical activity a week. So 150 minutes a week, that's 30 minutes a day, not including the weekends. So I want us to start thinking, how can I get more physical activity in? And this is important with screen time. We spend so much time on our screens, especially now, right? Right now, it's kind of ironic because I'm telling you to reduce your screen time while being on a screen. But think about ways that you can incorporate more physical activity with your screens when you have to. So if you're working from home, you're doing school, maybe we have things like this that are online. How can I be more physically active? How can I reach my 150 minutes a week or 30 minutes every day, not including the weekend, while also using my screen? So maybe it's like what we just did. If I have to be in a Zoom meeting, maybe I'll do some squats. I'll do some marching in place, some side steps to get my blood flowing, my heart is pumping, and my skin, I'm feeling a little bit hotter, a little bit warmer, a little bit sweatier. You might think that's kind of gross, but that means the physical activity is working. All right, any questions? I'm seeing one in here. Question, are men and women portions different? Can you give me an example as to what portion you are just talking about? Are we talking about added sugar, salts? Are portion sizes different for men than women? What about sugar and salt? Great question. So when it comes to serving size on our foods, they're going to be the same. That is the serving size for that food. And our calorie needs, our caloric needs can differ for people depending on sex, age, and physical activity. Remember I said that calories are just that unit of measurement for energy. So if I'm being more physically active, I'm exercising, I'm using up energy, I need more energy. And if I'm not so active and I'm just hanging out, sitting on the couch, I don't need as much energy. And when it comes to sugar, the added sugar, it does differ. So 24 grams for women and 36 grams for males. Salt is the same across the board for everybody. So 1,500 milligrams is the same for everybody. Remember, that's what we need. That's what our body requires. Sodium is important for different functions inside of our body, all of our different organs. It's also going to help maintain our body's fluid, so we're balanced, but we are not recommended to exceed 2,300 milligrams. Great questions. Any other questions that we have? Not seeing any, making my job so much easier. I want to look a little bit more at our sodium and dietary guidelines. So I know, again, this is really tall, but the things that are really small, the things that I want to touch base on is tips for cooking at home. Because I think a lot more of us are cooking at home, being that restaurants are closed, we're not going out as much. So we do have to focus on what am I making for myself? And salt, that gets tricky when we're making our own food. So I don't know about anybody else, but I grew up always putting salt inside of every pot and pan, especially if it's boiling water, to make whatever boil faster. But what happens when I drain maybe my pasta noodles, if that's what I'm boiling, all of that salt ends up going back into my pasta. So even though I'm draining it, it's now been absorbed in there. And it's really only saved me maybe 2-3 minutes extra time to boil. It's not really necessary when it comes to over salting things. So if we can avoid putting salt in during the cooking process and only add it to taste, that's a really great way to lower the sodium intake. So instead of putting in teaspoons in the recipe, in the pan, the pot, whatever it might be, just at the end of taste, because during the cooking process, when we heat that food up and heat that salt up, we kind of lose that flavor. So that's why you might think when you're making a dish, you're like, I put a lot of salt in here, why don't I taste it? Well, we kind of lost that in the cooking process. So just add it to taste at the end. No more questions. wonderful, making my job so much easier. The last thing I want to talk about is added sugars in our sugar sweetened beverages and sodas. If anybody saw me last year, which feels like 10 years ago, but it was really just 1 year ago when we had the sugar demo in person, and we actually looked at how much sugar was in some of our sodas. So I want you as homework, even though we're not going to see each other again, is whenever you do get a soda or you look at a soda or a pop, look at that nutrition facts label to see how much added sugar is in there. So one of the examples that was really shocking for those of us that remember was our colas had 39 grams of added sugar in a 12-ounce can, right? Just a can, 12 ounces. And now think about if you go to a restaurant or get something that's fast food, or maybe you go to a gas station and get one of those really tall 32-ounce sodas, how much does that add up? Just our 12-ounce can had 39 grams. So if I multiplied that by 3, I'm well over 100 grams of added sugar. I see some shares inside of our chat. I have not had another Dr. Pepper since last year's presentation. Yes, so that was one of our sodas that had up to 64 grams, but 1/3 of the can was pure added sugar. Another question I'm seeing is, what is the potential harm of not intaking 2,000 calories per day? What a great question. I think sometimes we focus so much on over consuming, not making sure we're not over consuming, but we can under consume, and that's so important. So just as valid as not getting too much energy, because that gets stored as fat, is making sure we get enough energy. So if I don't get enough energy, think about times that you've had to go to work or to school or to church and you didn't get breakfast, and how did you feel? Not great. If you're like me, you're cranky, you're irritated, you're upset, you don't want to talk to anybody, right? All you're thinking about is, when is lunch? When can I get some food? So not only is it affecting my mental state, I am not feeling great, I'm having a hard time, but I'm also taking things away from my body. I'm increasing the risk of being deficient in some of those vital nutrients, vitamins, minerals, protein, the healthy carbohydrates, and heart healthy fats. So making sure that we are meeting those those energy needs is so important. It's all a balance game, everything in moderation. Of course, there's no simple answer where I could just tell you, go eat this one magic food and it's going to make everything better. That doesn't exist. What we should do is follow these recommendations, like my plate, getting fruits, veggies, grains, protein, and dairy, half fruits and vegetables every single day, and then water intake. So like I had mentioned, there's a lot of sugar, a lot of salt in these sugar sweetened beverages. We can replace those with water. Water is so important for us. Not only does it help me from staying too dehydrated and thirsty, but it's going to hydrate my skin. It helps all these different functions inside of my body, and it's also going to balance that fluid. We need half of our body weight in ounces of water every single day. So if you weigh 200 pounds, you need to drink 100 ounces of water every day, right? Half our body weight in ounces. And so I'm seeing that there's some more stuff coming in the chat, and I want to make sure that I can touch base on these. So how much exercise should we get in a week? Yes, 30 minutes a day, at least 5 days a week, 150 minutes or 2.5 hours a week minimum. That doesn't mean like, oh, I reached 151 minutes, I should not move at all for the rest of the week. That's just the minimum, at least 150 minutes, right? We break that down, that's about 30 minutes a day if we don't want to work out on the weekends. But we still want to move our body. So I like to think of it this way. I don't eat all of my food for the week in one day, because if I did all that on Sunday, I'm pretty sure that by Tuesday, I'm going to be pretty hungry. Physical activity should be the same way. I want to make sure that I'm doing it every single day. We have muscles, we have joints. We're meant to be able to move to the best of our abilities. And physical activity is going to look different for all of us. Our ages, our ability, our strength. So whatever works for you. And then another question, is it possible to live on beverages alone, such as V8, protein shakes, etc.? So again, we are recommending that we get those 5 food groups, which we can't always get in a drink or beverage form. And even things like vegetable juice and fruit juice, 100% vegetable and 100% fruit juice, that can be great and helpful for getting servings of fruit. We're gonna miss some nutrients because when we juice a fruit and a vegetable, we're losing things, mostly fiber, which helps our digestive system. It helps you poop. If you don't know at this point that everybody poops, I'm sorry to be the first one to tell you that, but that's how it works. So we will lose out on some of that when we have things like fruit juice and vegetable juice. Great questions. And then this question, I was hoping it was going to be asked, what if you don't like water? What if it's not your thing? Great question, because you're like, Allie, I want to drink more water, but I don't like it. We can mix it up. We can change water up. It doesn't have to be plain boring. I love to add fruit and herbs to my water. So mint and cucumber. I've done apples, limes, lemons, strawberries, watermelon. Make it a little bit more flavorful. You can also make your own version of a soda with 100% fruit juice, half that and half carbonated water. So it's fizzy, it's sweet. We didn't have that added sugar. I am getting some fruit in there and it's water, right? So I don't want to do that for all of my water, but that is going to be helpful to me. And there are some other non-salt added and no added sugar flavor packs or little like flavor things that you can add to your water. If that's going to help you drink more water, then that's what we should be doing. And maybe if we find ourselves, we need 100 ounces of water and I only notice I'm getting 40 ounces, that's a big difference. And if I try to drink that other 60 ounces in one day, I might find myself having a hard time doing that. Take slow, small goals to get there. I like to work in SMART goals. SMART goals are simple, measurable, achievable, relevant, and timely. So make goals that you can actually do and track your progress. So with that, I see that we only have a couple more minutes. So if we do have more questions, please keep sending those in. But I do want to make sure that I say thank you all for listening and participating and inviting me back. I know it's a little bit different that we're not still in person again, but I'm so happy that we were able to meet in any way that we can and virtually worked out for us. I appreciate you all, and I hope that you all have a wonderful rest of your evening. Thank you, everybody.
Well, hello, Macedonia. Hello, everybody watching on Facebook Live. We want to thank you on behalf of Macedonia, we want to thank you for participating. We want to thank you for viewing. We want to thank you for registering for our Every Mind Matters Mental Health Symposium. We love that we were able to still do this and bring this to you all this year. We thank you, thank you, thank you. We want to also make sure we thank all of our guest presenters and panelists from yesterday as well as today. We appreciate you all taking out the time in your busy schedules to even do this. It's so important as a ministry, but also just as a city, as a people, that we get this information out to one another, that we educate ourselves, and that we are continually uplifting one another in a time where mental health is so, so, so important. So again, we thank you, and I want you to do two things for me now. I need you to find your registration links that were emailed to you for your breakout sessions that are going to begin around 7:05. And then two, I need you to make sure every last one of you come back on Friday to Facebook Live at Macedonia's page. And I need you to tune in for our very first Truth Be Told of the year, where we will be talking again about mental health, the importance of making sure we stay on top of our mental health. We educate one another about our mental health. We have some professionals in the mental health field, as well as in the physical health field, to basically inform us on what it is we need to do to make sure that we are putting ourselves and our minds a priority in this new year. So again, we thank you, and we'll see you. I'll see you, some of you, in your breakout sessions. Thank you.